What's up, everyone? It's Andrea. Today, Worf is the kind of mentor we all want. It's hard being a junior officer and not knowing what's going on. And we ask the question, can we return Ben and get Guinan back? Come nerd out with us.
Welcome to the TNG Podcast, the #1 place in the Alpha Quadrant to geek out about all things Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm your co-host, Shereese.
Hey, I'm your co-host, Andrea. Shereese, this week we're talking Season 7, Episode 15, Lower Decks. This episode was written by Ronald Wilkerson and directed by Gabrielle Beaumont. While enduring the Enterprise's promotion evaluation process, 4 junior officers find themselves involved in a top-secret mission.
Bum, bum, bum.
Totally! What are your initial thoughts on this episode?
So what I wrote down in my notes was that I remembered this episode was the one with the cadet from Wesley's class.
Totally!
But I didn't remember anything else about this episode except for the ending, which always makes me so sad that I never rewatched this episode. So I did not know what to expect for the rest of the episode because I didn't remember what it was about.
Yeah, I do remember, I remember it being good. I don't remember it being like one of the favorites, but I remember it being pretty good. And I do remember the ending, which is really sad. And that death at the end is actually like on a bunch of lists of like top 10 most sad deaths in like the Trek universe. And I was like, yeah, it was just, death with meaning isn't as sad for me as like just meaningless death where it was so unnecessary, right? Where it's like, oh man. I was excited to watch this one, but honestly, after last week, like anything is better than Sub Rosa. So I was like, oh my gosh, thank God, like something new that doesn't involve a ghost and like mind control or whatever. Yeah, totally. Well, let's just jump right in. Like in 10 forward, Deanna and Riker are going over crew evaluations and they've been at it for hours. So they're kind of tired. At another table, like 2 tables down, 4 like junior officers are sitting together and they're really nervously like watching Troy and Riker do the evaluations because Troy and Riker are taking a break for a minute. They're like, let's get some coffee. We're kind of trading some jokes. And one of them, Sam, is like particularly nervous and he's like, what could they be laughing about? Like, there's nothing funny about crew evaluations, like promotion, right? And it is nice to see one of those junior officers as Alyssa Ogawa. I think it was nice that they gave us someone we already knew from the show.
Me too, because, we love Alyssa. We love us some Alyssa. And it was really great because I never even paid attention to her rank or knew what it was. So I love that she's a part of this group exactly for the reason you said, because it's like, oh, it's somebody we know and we actually care about how they do on the ship or whatever. Yeah. And then it introduces us to like her friends. So it gives us a connection that makes total sense. You're just like, yep, it all tracks. Versus I think you're right. If it was 4 new people, this whole episode would feel like a total throwaway. Because it'd be like a bunch of people we've never seen before and we'll never see again.
Yeah, it would feel so forced. Which I also feel like it already did feel kind of forced. But like we have Alyssa, which is our touchstone. Thank God for that. And we do love her. We do have Ensign Sito, who's the Bajoran woman. She is the one who was part of the pilot team with Wesley when they did that illegal covert starburst maneuver, who ended up killing one of the pilots. And, she was part of the cover up. So it is kind of nice to see her be able to like move on from that accident and the cover up and sort of redeem herself.
It's a where are they now, basically, at least for one of the members of that little team.
It was a where are they now that we didn't ask for, but it is kind of nice to see it where it's like, hey, it's always nice to see a familiar face. The barkeep ends up bringing Deanna coffee and he overhears Riker and Troy talking about the ops position. And you know what I got to say? The barkeep, his name is Ben. I don't really like him.
Yeah, because he's nosy.
He's nosy and he's a fucking instigator. He just stirs shit up and is like part of like the gossip circle. And
he
I'm
really
like,
does.
buddy,
and I was like, when he was over there, like
mouth shut.
Yes, when he was grinning and giving them coffee, but also listening to what they were talking about, I was like, yeah, you guys should be talking about this in your office. Like 10 forward is not the place to have this conversation. You guys can replicate coffee right in your office.
I thought the exact same thing. And every time we've seen a member of the crew go to another crew member's quarters to be like, are you ready to do these evaluations? That's the right place to do that. Because here, 1, it's a public place. 2, you're talking about pretty confidential information. 3, other people in the room are holding their breath on like where they land on the evals. So like, you don't think you're making people anxious by like doing this here? This is all stupid. But yeah, so Ben is like, he overhears Riker and Troy, and then he ends up like walking over to the junior officers and he's like, guess what I just heard? 2 of you are up for the same job. Excuse me, sir, you're fired. Like, let's get Guinan back because she would never have time.
She would never
for this
have
kind of like
pedantic
ass like gossiping. Like, and listen, gossip is all good and well, but like this isn't, come on now. This is so dumb.
Now, so it turns out Ensign Sito and Sam are both up for the same, I think it's Sam Lavelle or something like that, but Sam, they're both up for the same position, and they're really good friends. So when Ben says this, they look at each other and like, oh, now we're competing against each other, which they had no idea about 10 seconds before. So had Ben just kept his mouth shut, Sam would have kept freaking out about getting promoted, and Ensign Sito would have just been going about her lovely day, like not even tripping about anything.
Yep. And it was totally it's like totally useless anyway, because of the way the story plays out. It's like, it turns out y'all didn't have to be concerned about this in the least. On the bridge, Riker is running a simulation with two of those same crewmen. The Bajoran woman, Ensign Sito, she's a little bit slow taking up on the phasers, to fire. And, when the simulation is over, Riker's like, what happened? And she's like, well, I had to like recalibrate the phasers after we did some maneuver. And he's like, okay, let me give you a little like pro tip on like what to do here. And she's like, oh, thank you so much. Now, Sam is at the comms, and Riker gives him some order, and he goes, aye, aye, sir. And Riker goes, you only need to give one aye. And Sam's like, oh, okay, then, like already feeling kind of beat up on. Seems like Riker is just sort of genuinely kind of irritated by Sam. And Sam is just trying to kiss ass and do his very best, right?
Which is exactly why Riker's so irritated with him. It's because Sam is trying so hard. Riker's just like, ugh.
Yes,
it's like,
exactly.
Sam's not doing anything wrong. He's not bad at his job. He's just a suck up, which I know is irritating, but he's kind of
an irritating suck up, but you're right. But he's not doing anything wrong. Like that's what which actually Deanna points out later in the episode. Like, Riker, didn't you do this as well when you were like a junior crewman? So like, shut the fuck up. So Picard comes out of his ready room, and I like that this story is very much told from the point of view of a junior crewman.
Yes.
A junior officer.
So we don't go with Picard to find out what happens.
Which we always
stay with the junior officers.
Right. He's like, Helm, set a course for the Gaia system, maximum warp. And then he gathers the senior crew to go to the observation lounge to talk about the mission, which we always get to go with them. And now we don't. And I'm like, hey, what are y'all talking about over there? Like, I kind of poke my head in like, what's going on over there, you guys?
Is there a secret mission? Is it a secret? Or can I
know? Yeah. And like Sito and a young guy are like chatting at the comm, and he thinks Riker has it out for him. So
Riker's like, Ensign Sito, you take ops or whatever, you take the comm, take where Data's position is. And she's like, yes, sir. And so she sits down and she starts like kind of talking to Sam, and Sam is like he's just feeling really low. He's feeling like he just got reprimanded for being himself. So he doesn't know what else to do or what else to be. And she's just like, oh, that was tough, but you did such a great job. And she's just being really supportive. And he's like, oh yeah, well, if I'm doing such a great job, why are you sitting in that chair and I'm not? And she goes, well, maybe because they think I need more practice than you do, which is such a gracious thing to say, right? It's like, oh, it's because you're so much better than me. Like, just so gracious. And so he like kind of smiles and like loosens up. And you just see that I don't know, just a really supportive, it wasn't competitive and harsh. It was really supportive, like camaraderie. I love that.
I think that it was more supportive on Sito's side, and Sam was a little bit more competitive.
I think Sam was more like feeling sorry for himself. He was just sitting there like, I suck. And he hates me, and I'm never gonna get promoted. And she's just like, buddy.
Like they never went after each other. But Sito was like, "You're just doing a great job, and I guess I need the practice," which is super generous of her to say, because she could have been like, "I'm just better at this, apparently," or he trusts me more, or whatever. But like, she didn't go that route. Yeah. Now, senior staff goes off to the observation lounge to talk about something that's obviously going on because Picard seems tense AF. In main engineering, the Vulcan ensign shows Geordi like what he's done. He's increased engine output by 7%, which is a lot. He's super gung-ho about engineering. He's got a ton of new ideas. But this is one of those situations where I think Vulcans just sort of don't know how to read the room. Where it's like, well, I have some ideas now. And like Geordi is very clearly trying to walk away because he's got other shit to do. And it's like, this could have been an email, dude. This all could have been an email with some bullet points, right? Like, send me a comm with this. But he's like, well, I have lots of ideas if you want to hear them now. I also had it's like, buddy, not the time. Not the time.
Ensign Torek is played by this actor who was also the newsboy back in Time's Arrow. But what's cool about this character?
What?
He was like the journalist guy who's like, "Oh, get the story from you, Mr. Clemens or whatever."
Oh, he wasn't the bellman though.
He wasn't the bellman. No.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, I was like, I think you're thinking of the other guy. No, but what I love about this particular character is here he's playing this Vulcan named Turek. This actor goes on to play a Vulcan in Voyager named Vorik. And he's the same name.
Torek and Vorik.
Yes, the same name almost. He also plays a Vulcan, and he's a recurring character on the show. He's not like a main character, but he does have one episode where he goes into Ponfar and tries to mate with B'Elanna and
Oh my
like
God.
infects her with like the Ponfar virus. So then she goes into Ponfar as a half Klingon. So she's like crazy, and they end up nearly fighting each other to the death because that's the only way to get rid of it if you don't have sex, is you have to like get it. You have to get it out of your system one way or the other.
Okay.
Yeah. And and I love that episode. It's one of my favorite episodes. And so when I saw him, I was like, oh my gosh, good for him, because the fact that he's been in this show twice and then ends up being a character on that show either shows me that he's really committed to acting, or he's legitimately a fan of the series of Star Trek, of the universe.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, I'm just like, good for you that being a fan, you got to be a part of this world for
that is so cool.
For at least like 7 years on Voyager or whatever, like super duper cool. Anyways, yeah, he's driving Geordi crazy. Geordi's like, hey, if you have any more ideas, feel free to let me know, which is something that we say that we don't really mean most of the time. And so Torek is like, I actually do have several ideas. When can I let you know? When can I tell you about them? Can I tell you about them now? And Geordi's like, oh, don't call me, I'll call you. And you're just like, yeah, what he just said about let him know anytime, he really meant, please stop talking immediately. Don't ever talk to me again.
Yeah, he really meant email it to me and I'll read it
at some point.
Whenever. Right. Yeah. This is the thing with Vulcans that kind of drives me a little bit nuts. It's like they don't really know how to read the room well.
At least this one doesn't.
At least this one does not. But I also feel like most Vulcans don't read the room well and also don't care to read the room well. So they're like, they just couldn't even give a shit.
But I feel like he's trying. He's really trying to impress Geordi. He is going about it the wrong way. This
is where ensign suck-ups never really work, because people in general have kind of a strong bullshit filter, and we can tell when people are being disingenuous with us for the most part. And like when somebody's just sucking up, it's like, no. Now in sickbay, Nurse Ogawa comes to Beverly to update her on a patient's condition, but Beverly thinks Alyssa's there to like ask about the crew evaluations. So she's like, look, your crew evaluation was like 100% A+. I'm putting you up for promotion to Lieutenant Ogawa. And they chat like a little bit more, and Beverly asks Alyssa about her new romance, and Alyssa's excited about this guy, but he's so busy with research, he had to cancel with her. And she's like, am I being impulsive? Because romance at first can really sweep you up. And I had such a bone to pick with this. Alyssa says, at first romance can be like all consuming and can sweep you up. And Beverly says, I'm not sure I know what you mean. Girl, last week you were in love with a spirit who had sex with you via green gas. And you're telling me you don't know what it's like to be caught up in a romance?
Well, maybe she's blacked it all out.
Yeah, never mind the trill. Never mind John Smith or whoever that dude was, like the one who became the ball of light.
Yeah.
Like, girl, stop playing. Stop it.
I
didn't even catch that, in love with a dude who has romanced 1,000 years of your ancestors. No?
And that was last week. That was just last week. Yeah.
That was the last episode. Oh my God. I was like, Beverly, I'm going to need you to go take a break. What the hell? Anyway, that was my rant about this episode.
It's funny. I didn't even catch that, but I did think that this whole conversation, my first thing was like, who talks to their boss about their love life? That's weird. But then my second thought was like, it's just such a sweet moment, which is a really sweet conversation. I really, at first I was like, it's weird, but I also enjoyed it. Yeah.
It was cute. Now in 10 Forward, Ensign Sito is talking to Worf about the challenges she's
about
facing
the simulation she just did.
Yeah.
And how like she messed it up or whatever. And she's like, I don't even know why I'm even being considered for this role. Like, I'm not even good at this.
She's feeling like she's not going to be good enough. And I really do love Worf's gentle hand in this. Klingons can be really in your face about stuff a lot of times, but here he's very subdued and understated, but it translates so well because most of the episode is people being trying too hard and overstated and like pushing and sucking up, right? So Worf's like gentle hand is really welcome in my mind for this. He is like, I recommended you for this post because I think very highly of your work ethic and your skills or whatever. And she's like, wow, really? Wow. Like, that's so nice. Like, she's the one that I liked her the most because she's not trying so hard. Yeah. She really wants to prove herself, but she's just genuinely trying to do a good job instead of like, well, can I tell you about this improvement I made? And this one and this one while you're trying to go to dinner.
She's not trying to suck up to anybody. She's just doing her best. She's just doing her normal thing. Yeah, you're right about that. And yeah. And I guess, she's the normal one. And then she's being she's being countered by all these other ones. Now, Alyssa is doing great. She has nothing to worry about. She's been doing great. She's been an ensign on this ship for 7 years. So like, she's got a lot of skills. There's nothing for her to worry about. I don't know why it took her so long. Yeah, I don't know why it took her so long to get a promotion, but like, we're not worried about her. But the other crewmen, they're trying so hard. And she's just like kind of surprised actually by all the opportunities she's getting, but she takes them when they come. She's just like, cool, I'll do it. Like it's hard. It's weird. I'm not sure of myself, but I'm totally going to do it. So while this is going on, we go back to Sam, you know, who's like, what are they laughing about? What are they talking about? What's going on?
He's such a mini Riker.
Yeah. So poor thing, he's freaking out. And Riker walks in and he's like, it's him. It's the big man. You know, like he always goes to pieces when he sees Riker because I think he just wants to be him when he grows up. And Ben, who's just hanging out with them because he's got no customers to serve in all of 10 Forward, apparently. He's just like, I'm just
stirring shit up again.
Yeah, he can take breaks, but like, yeah, maybe don't stir the pot. Just like hang out and just be cool. So anyways.
Also, his outfits are always really freaking ugly. He looks like he's dressed like a court jester, which I guess is kind of how he's behaving in this episode. But like, can we get Guinan, please?
Well, he does say later on that, we just need Guinan in this episode. He does say later on that he's a civilian. So I guess this is their version of like civilian, but work clothes. So I don't know. But anyways, Riker comes in, Sam melts in his chair. And then Ben is like, hey, Will. And Will's like, hey, Ben. And like goes over to get a drink, which just totally throws Sam for a loop. He's like, you call him by his first name. What is wrong with you? And he's like, well, when he comes in here, he just wants to be a regular person. He doesn't want to be like a big shot. And Sam's like, he's the second in charge of this whole freaking ship. Like, you got to show him some respect. And so he's like, look, if you really want to get to know Riker, just go talk to him. And he's like, about what? I don't know what to say. I don't know. What am I going to say? And he's like, well, and he starts giving him some little fun facts about Riker. And he's like, what about this or this or this or this? You know, he's Canadian. And then he's like, okay, I got that one. I'm going to go over and I'm going to talk to him. So he goes over and does the most awkward pickup line of all time. And he's like, so, hey, I heard that you're Canadian. My grandfather was Canadian or whatever. And Riker's like, I'm Alaskan. And he's just like, well, gotta go.
Yeah, he's like, well, they sure do get a lot of snow. And Riker goes,
yeah, he goes, they both get a lot of snow. Yeah, it's
which also
so painful.
Sam comes up to Riker, who's sitting alone at the bar, and he's got a full glass of Kool-Aid. It looks like
cranberry juice.
Bright red.
Yeah.
Right. Like bright red juice with also a really cool kind of cup. I don't know if you noticed this, if you happen to ever rewatch this episode again, which I don't know why you would, because it's sort of a throwaway, but whatever. The cup itself looks like a tall, skinny glass, but when he takes his hand away from the bottom, there's hand indentations in the plastic, which I was like, that's cool. I wish the actor hadn't covered it with his hand because we didn't get to see it until he like walked away. So he's got a full glass. And so Riker goes, yeah, what are you doing here? And he goes, oh, I'm just here to get a refill. But his glass is like totally full. So Riker's like, he's like, is there something wrong with that one? He's like, no. What are you drinking? And Riker's having a beer. So he's like a something ale. And Sam is like, yeah, I'll have one of those too. And then when he wipes out with this whole Canada-Alaska thing, and he's like, well, there's a lot of snow, both of those places, I guess. And Riker goes, yeah, there sure is. Sam has the decency to be embarrassed and walk away. And now he's got 2 full drinks that he's just wasted. So I guess they're going to go to the replicator, but the bartender goes, your drink? And he's like, and just like kind of
already gone. He's already out of 10 Forward. By the time the bartender's like, sir, your ale.
Girl, he's already going, stupid, like hitting himself in the head as he's walking down the hallway. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Enterprise is in the holding position now at the Agaia system. They're there. Things seem really tense. But again, because this point of view is taken from the junior crewmen or the junior officers, we don't really know what's going on, but things seem tense. They're less than 5,000 kilometers from the Cardassian border, which is nothing. An escape pod is coming towards them, but it's just inside Cardassian space, and life support systems are failing. So they're like, we gotta figure something out because we're not going to make it.
They need to grab it, but they can't enter their Cardassian space because that would be like a treaty violation. So they're like, can we like tractor beam it out, or can we transport out? And they're like, we're out of range. So he's like, we need to boost the power so that we can get enough power to like beam the person on board. So we get to see all the different parts of the ship where all of these ensigns are like dispersed, and they're all working on different parts of the problem. So in engineering, Geordi is telling Torek, like, you know, like, okay, we need to boost the efficiency of the energy or whatever. And Torek's like, oh, I can scan the pod to see exactly who's in it and increase efficiency in this way or whatever. And Geordi's like, no one told you to do that, ensign. Don't you dare do that. And he's like, oh, sorry, sir. You know, like, and you're kind of like, wow, that was a big reaction. And then back in sick bay, Beverly's getting things ready, and then everybody's clearing out, and she turns to Nurse Ogawa, and she's like, I need you to leave immediately. And she's like, okay. So like everybody's clearing out. And then as soon as she walks out, she sees Ensign Cito standing guard. And she's like, hey, what are you doing here? And she was like, girl, I don't even know. But they told me I have to stand here and only let senior members in and nobody else. And then Nurse Ogawa sees Captain Picard come in and is like, all right, see you later. Bye. Like runs the other way. And then Picard comes in and gives Ensign Cito like the dirtiest look.
Yeah, he like pauses before he walks in to kind of like give her the once over. And it's not a friendly once over. It's not like a, hey girl, you looking good today. It was like a, what the fuck are you doing here? Look. I was like, ew.
Yeah, gives her this dirty look and then walks into sick bay, and she's like, because you know she's kind of smiling like Captain, and then she like her smiles falters like, what?
She's like, Captain,
do something? You know, like why are you looking at me like that? And so he walks in, and then she's just like, okay, so all the junior officers are like, something's going down, but we don't know what. So we're just gonna be doing our jobs, which I actually thought was really cool. Like I like that. Just seeing all the different parts of the ship all in this one scene.
Sort of in this very busy time where like something tense is obviously happening. As Picard leaves sickbay, he tells Ensign Cito, you're with me. So they go into the turbo lift. As they're waiting for the turbo lift doors, the doors open and out walks someone and Sam, who like sees Cito and sees Picard, and he's like, what the fuck? Right? Like,
and Cito has the biggest grin on her face.
Yeah, she's like, okay.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Little does she know she's about to get a mouthful of salt. He's like, in the turbo lift, he says, you're a certified pilot, right? And she says, yes. So they walk to the ready room, and he ends up reaming her about the accident at Starfleet Academy with the Culvert Starburst and subsequent cover-up. And he's like, you know, it's not the accident that happened. Like, first of all, that was stupid and it was illegal and you should have known better. But what's more upsetting is that you covered it up and you impeded an investigation, causing a lot of heartbreak and heartache and blah, blah, blah. And she was
doesn't
like,
that speak to your character that you have? What
like,
kind of
what
character
are you
do you
doing
have
on this ship? Like, this is the Enterprise. Okay. This isn't, you know, this isn't the fucking Defiant or whatever else. So she says, it was horrible going through the rest of Starfleet Academy with that hanging over my head. When I took my pilot's license test, nobody would test with me because I didn't have any friends. No one would speak to me the whole time. I had to take the test with like my instructor, which I was like, don't you have to do that anyway with an instructor? Right. But whatever. So she's basically saying like, it was terrible and I stuck through it. I could have just left, but I stuck through it. Doesn't that speak to my character? And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry you had a terrible time after your bullshit accident resulted in some kid dying. Like, get out of my office. You're dismissed. So she just got the riot act read to her. And I was like,
after she thought, I don't know what she thought, but she was so excited going into that room.
If I was an ensign aboard the Enterprise and Picard had spoken to me like that, I probably would have started crying.
Oh, I would have
right where I stood.
I wouldn't have cried in front of him. But as soon as I walked out into the bridge, I'd have been like,
I wouldn't want to cry in front of him. I certainly wouldn't want to, but I probably would fall to pieces. Yeah. Now, meanwhile, but this is all happening. Geordi. So again, so much action going on all over the ship. Geordi's in the shuttle bay with Ensign Torek, and he's having Torek shoot the shuttlecraft Curie, which we saw in the Parallels episode, with a phaser rifle from like different angles. And Torek is like, yes, this is consistent. And Geordi's like, consistent with what? Because Torek is way too smart for his own good. And if you're going to be too smart for your own good, keep it to your damn self.
That's the part.
Do not let people know. No. Again, Vulcans, what are you going to do?
Well, because he was asking all these questions like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this way? And Geordi's like, just do what I asked you to do. And he says,
this is the military, son.
Seriously.
Shut up and do your job.
Seriously, but he gives him some lame cover story like, oh, we're running metallurgical tests on the strain of the hull or whatever. So then Torek, being Torek, is like, well, I could increase the efficiency of this experiment so that there's no damage to the hull. And Geordi's just like, it's fine the way it is. Keep doing what I'm telling you to do. And that's when he goes, well, that's consistent. You're trying to make it look like this shuttle escaped a battle. That's what all these patterns mean to me. And Geordi goes, what an amazing coincidence. Keep working. You know, like, exactly.
What are you doing? If your superior officer clearly is trying to like kind of put you in your place and just have you do your job and shut up and work, you do not continue to question them.
Yeah, he's not getting the context clues.
Read the room. Now, Alyssa is called to sickbay on emergency, and Beverly's like, I am asking you, and by asking, I mean I'm giving you a direct order,
right?
Not to discuss what you see here in this room, and there's a Cardassian lying in a coma on the bed, and Alyssa sees it, and it's actually very, very well done. So props to Gabrielle Beaumont for the way that she directed this scene, because we discover the Cardassian on the bed the same moment that Alyssa does as well, right? Again, all told from junior officer's perspective. So the actress who plays Alyssa, does a great job at being like, oh my God, there's like a Cardassian lying here, because they've been enemies forever, right? And it's just not good. Like, what the hell? And Beverly walks away going, we need to synthesize like so many liters of like Cardassian blood, like replicator. I was like, dang.
Did you have this thought that I had? Why didn't she just ask Dr. Solar?
You know what?
I was like, why is she calling Alyssa? There's a whole other doctor here.
Yeah, Alyssa's a nurse, and not, it's just not on the same medical level, I guess.
Well, I'm saying if it's like a top secret, whatever, and only senior staff can know, just get another senior staff person.
You know what? You're right.
Especially if she's doing emergency surgery. Like, I think the doctor could be more. I don't know.
We don't need a PA. We don't need a nurse. Yeah.
That was my thought, but it's probably my thought because Dr. Solar was mentioned in the last episode. So had she not been mentioned, I probably wouldn't have been tripped about it and been just like, oh yeah, of course she's going to depend on her right hand.
You're totally right. I didn't even think of that. I just sort of took it at face value. You're so right. Now, we have this kind of scene that's sort of a back and forth. So I didn't take like super detailed notes, but it's basically like the junior officers are having a poker night in their quarters, while the senior officers are having a poker night in one of their quarters. So both of them are kind of just discussing slices of life. They speculate what's going on, why they're so close to Cardassian space. In the junior poker group, I'm just irritated that Ben's grinning ass is there. He's just gossiping and stirring the pot again. He seems to be the main pot stirrer. And I'm like, also, you have no skin in this game. You're a civilian. Like, your ass is not on the line for promotion.
Why do you even care?
Why do you even care? Why do you even care?
Especially since you're not on the line for promotion, which is such an anxiety-inducing thing, at least for Sam. So it's like, if for no other reason, stop messing with Sam. Like, everybody else in the room is just like, whatever, it'll happen when it happens. But Sam is like freaking out. And actually, Andrea told me, which I did not know this until she said this on one of our previous episodes, that the animated series Lower Decks was based off of this episode right here. And I was like, and I remember when she said that, she was like, it was based off of an episode in TNG with the same name. And I was like, what episode? Because this is all the way buried in season 7. But watching this, I could not help but see Ensign Boimler. Like, every time Sam opened his mouth, just the way he's freaking out, the way he's so like full of anxiety and just everything else. And I'm just like, poor Boimler. Like, I feel so bad for him. And Ben is just stirring the pot. And basically, between these two poker games, the junior officers are really just trying to figure out what's going on. And then Ensign Cito tells them what happened in the captain's quarters and that it wasn't all sunshine and roses. And then they're all just really trying to be supportive. And even Sam is just like, you're amazing. Like, you're such a great officer. No one can hold that against you. What happened in the past? Torek is like, that's illogical to punish you for something that happened. They're all just really trying to like cheer her up, but she's just feeling lousy, understandably so. And
totally.
Back in the senior poker game, they're talking about a bunch of things, but one of the things they talk about is like Riker is telling Worf, like, I don't think Ensign Cito's working out, and Worf is like, trust me, like, give her a chance. She will not let you down.
I strongly disagree with you on this.
He's like,
he really went to bat for her.
He really did. He really did. So Riker,
and he didn't even have to, but he did a fucking great job.
I mean, he recommended her in the first place, and he kept going. And so Riker was like, all right, on your recommendation, I will keep her in the running because you said so. But I don't like Sam, not because he's not good at what he does. I just don't like him. He's just such a suck up. And that's when Troy is just like, oh, really? Like, isn't that the whole reason you learned poker? So that you could hang out with the senior staff on the whatever
Pegasus.
Ship?
On the Pegasus.
No, it was the Potemkin. On the Potemkin.
The Potemkin, that's right.
And he was like, well, that's totally different. And Troy's like, is it? And then she was like, well, but what if the senior officers didn't see it that way? What if they thought you were trying to ingratiate yourself? What if they thought you were just trying to suck up to them? Like, all the stuff that he'd been saying. And Riker's like, you know what?
And she doesn't.
You're right.
Troy has a really great way of driving a point home without making it seem like she's trying to force it down your throat. She does a great job at that kind of overall in the series, where she was like, gosh, I guess it's just a good thing that the senior officers didn't see you as a suck up and they just let you join the poker game so that you could kind of ingratiate yourself with them, And like, she really turned it in such a way that wasn't like, Riker, you're being such a dick. If they hadn't done this for you, you never would have done whatever, blah, 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 like that. There's one way to shove it down his throat, but she gave him that spoonful of sugar that helped make that medicine go down much easier. He was like, yeah, I guess you're right. Also, going back to the Lower Decks series, you're totally right. Like, this episode is not super remarkable. I think it's a fine episode. It's not super remarkable, but I give so much credit to Mike McMahon for taking this like fairly unremarkable bottle show episode and turning it into an entire series, which is so funny. And so like, and when you hear Star Trek and then you hear comedy, I'm like, those don't go together. There are comedic elements to Star Trek at times, you know, like Deja Q is a funny episode because, you know, it's kind of slapsticky, but in general, the show is not funny. And he turned it into such a funny show. That's such a love letter to TNG in particular. And then I've heard, and I have not caught up on like the newest season, but I've heard the next season is like a love letter to like DS9, and the season after that's gonna be a love letter to like Voyager, right? Which is like, it just goes to the series.
And one of our listeners just DM'd us a couple days ago and said they just started Lower Decks and said that their take on the first season was that it was a love letter to TOS, which I missed all of that because I don't have any experience with TOS. But I caught all of the connections to TNG, or as many as I could.
Yeah, season 2 was like TNG. Yeah.
There's a ton of Easter eggs. So yeah, I mean, it was like, it's such a love. You can tell it's written by fans because every tiny little thing that we talk about on the show is something they bring out in that show. And me and Andrea, right before we hit record, we're just kind of marveling at the idea of taking this episode and turning it into that world, because I wouldn't have been able to make that leap, but I'm really glad they did.
It's a great show. It really, really is. And I remember in our pilot episode of this podcast, we both were like, yeah, I'm not going to watch an animated.
We both were. We're like, we're never going to watch that show. It's probably going to be so stupid. And then as soon as I watched it, I was like, oh, it's great. I was like, eat my words.
I'm so thrilled to be wrong and eat crow. Like, I will eat crow all day. Like, it is great. So if you haven't watched it, check it out. And then like the Trek universe continues to expand, right? Like,
yes.
All of the producers in the sort of Trek universe that, you know, they've gone on to like Picard and Strange New Worlds and Discovery and Enterprise and all. And like some of those shows have been bigger hits than others, but like, I love that the universe keeps expanding. And I really will say Marvel did a fantastic thing for movies and television in general, where they made it okay for characters
keep going forever. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's not that, but they made it. Do you remember when the first Avengers came out? We were like, you know, when the first Avengers came out, 10, 12 years ago, it was inconceivable that one superhero and another superhero from a totally different movie would meet in the same story, right? Because we're like, no, Batman is one and Superman's another. They don't meet, but it's like, you know, that's DC. But like Marvel did a fabulous job of being like Iron Man and Thor and Black Widow and all these are all going to team up. And we were like, what? Like, I remember our minds being blown when the first Avengers came out, because it was the first time that it had ever been done. And that was like 5 superheroes, you know, by the time you get to like fucking Endgame, it was like 5,300 superheroes all fighting together, which it became like a little much to sort of keep it all straight in my mind. But they set a tone, because the consumers ate it up. They set a tone for the universe to continue to expand. So that went into like Star Wars, where we got The Mandalorian, which is brilliant. Obi-Wan, which is so flippin' good. Like Andor, I've just recently started. It's really good. Star Trek
Ahsoka's coming out
on that. Oh my God. I can't wait for Ahsoka.
They're just in currently at the time of this recording. Everyone's just in kind of like repeat mode. They're just like rinse and repeat. But what's really nice about it, like in the MCU, like with Star Wars, like with Star Trek, is that it's not just one show and one person's storyline that's going on for 25 years. Yes. Instead, it's like, oh, that side character we met once, that person's getting we're going to find out their whole backstory and their side quests. Oh, that other character, we're going to find out their backstory and their side quests. Oh, and then they're going to come together with these other people and have a situation, you know, an adventure together. But it keeps things fresh. It keeps things new. And for me, it gets off the rerun train, because I'm all for a good movie, but when things get remade over and over and over and over and over and over and over, it drives me crazy, because I know there are so many talented writers in the world, and I want to hear
stories.
So many great stories, and I want to hear I want to see their stories. I want to see their amazing stories come to life. I don't just want to see the same movie I've seen 5 different versions of version 6. Like do we need
another version of Sleeping Beauty? Do we need another one? We've already told that story.
Yeah, like I want that. I want these new stories. Yeah, and so I like
remakes already.
Exactly, but the reason why people do it is because it makes money, and so I like that they found a way to make money telling a similar story, but telling it from different viewpoints and different characters and different angles so that at least it feels new. It feels different. It doesn't feel like we're just remaking the same thing we've already remade 5 times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
100%.
That's just super genius. I don't know how the magic is done, how the magic is made, but going from this to that makes all the sense in the world. In watching this episode, you're like, yeah, I mean, these are the characters.
Mad props for continuing the
in a
universe
in a really refreshing way. So at the end of this poker game, they kind of, a few people leave the senior game, a few people leave the junior game. And so Ben ends up going to the senior, whoever's quarters that is, to join their game. He's like, yeah, I just cleaned out all the junior members, so I thought I'd join you. And I just felt like whatever you guys were talking about before, don't talk about it anymore. Now that the megaphone is here.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Now that the megaphone is here, we're just going to have to talk about weather. Which there is none in space, but all right. Now in Mokbana,
how'd you like that quasar? It was nice.
Oh my God. So
I don't know what a quasar looks like. Can you look at a quasar? Is that even a space word?
They're
I don't know.
pulsing. Yeah, it's like a pulsing kind of.
Okay, I was like, it's either a space word or it's like a subatomic particle.
Now I am totally just pulling out of my memory banks from like 20 years ago. I remember it was kind of like a star that was collapsing, but like it spins really fast, so it kind of is like a lighthouse that's going really, really fast.
Oh, that's neat.
So that is really cool. So the answer is yes, I did like that quasar. Now the next thing we have in Mokbara, Worf is like dismissing the class, and he holds Ensign Sito back, and he says that like he teaches an advanced class and she's ready for it, but he must pass this like ancient test in which she's blindfolded. And she's like, well, should I practice? And he's like, no, part of the ritual is that it's supposed to be like a pop quiz. Which even as a teacher, I'm like, blech, I hate those words.
Yeah. So especially if it's a pop physical quiz, like I'm for sure going to fail that.
No, I'm good. I just did leg day. I'm kind of beat. I'm going to go home and have like a chicken wrap and call it a day. Now, Worf blindfolds her, and because she's blindfolded, it gave me a lot of shades of, actually speaking of Star Wars, it gave me a lot of shades of like Luke with the blinders on in A New Hope, when he's like at the very first trying to like defeat the blaster, and he's like, I can't see, how am I supposed to defeat this? Worf kicks her ass like 3-4 times and like throws her to the ground and tosses her around. By the way, the size difference between Michael Dorn and the actress that played Sito,
it's like a grown-up and a child, right?
Seriously. And he just throws her in, and I'm
like a rag doll.
I'm just a little petite woman. I'm like 5'1" on a big day, right? So to have like a big man just kind of throw you across the floor, I'm like, yeah, I know, because I've done jujitsu before. I'm like, yeah, I totally know what that feels like.
Yeah, but let's be fair. That wasn't the actress who plays Ensign Sito. That was her stunt double, which is why she's blindfolded. So she knows all the tricks of how to fall and not get hurt or whatever. But still, really, it was hard to watch, just seeing her get slammed and tossed and slammed and tripped and
more and more frustrated. Yeah. And finally she rips off the blindfold and she's like, this is not a fair test. Like, I'm not doing this. And Worf is like, goes over to a towel to dab the sweat off his face, which isn't even there. And he says, you've passed. It takes courage to say a test isn't fair. And I'm like, man, I fucking hate these gaslighty, like, you passed a test kind of bullshit. But he does actually have a point. He said, she's like, is there actually a test with this name? Like, I forgot, it's like a Klingon name. And he's like, you speak Klingon because it means like to the death. And she's like, is there actually a test to go to advanced level? And he's like, no, but perhaps the next time you are judged unfairly, it won't take so many bruises for you to stand up for yourself. And I was like,
yeah, well done.
Thank you, Worf.
This was a very good lesson, like a very physical lesson, but it painted the picture so much better than if he would have just taken her to 10 forward, poured some,
ale.
Yeah, or plum juice or whatever, and just just sat down and was like, hey, people are being mean to you. How do you feel about that?
You shouldn't accept that. Yeah.
I feel like this was just genius, just to kick her butt and great. To be like, and for her to be like, this is not cool. And for him to be like, yeah, well, maybe next time you can stand up for yourself without getting so many bruises. And she just smiles and she's like, thank you.
Got it.
Next scene, she's talking to Captain Picard. She's standing up for herself. She's not taking any more bruises. And she's very, very respectful. And she basically tells him that she's here to do a job. She's here to do her best. And she says, if I can't do that here, if I'm not going to get a chance to do that here, then I respectfully request to be transferred to another ship. And then she says, and honestly, sir, it's not your place to punish me for what I did in the academy. If you're going to judge me for what I'm doing now, which is like true,
Girl.
Which is true. Like, such a hard thing to say to the captain of the ship.
Yes.
She's only been on the ship for 7 months.
Right. And she does say permission to speak freely. So, and he's like, by all means. So she's really,
so she doesn't just bust this out of nowhere, but still.
But she does say, to be frank with you, if you had a problem with my being posted on this ship, you should have said something when I was posted. There's no reason to be upset about it months later.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he says, basically, well done. Like, I was not assessing you for the ops position that she and Sam are both like going for. Instead, I've been assessing you for a top secret mission. Be in the ops lounge at 0900 tomorrow. And Ensign, as she turns to walk away, there's a reason that you were posted on the Enterprise, because I asked for you and I wanted you to have a chance to redeem yourself after the Academy incident. And I was like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
I got so in my feels about that moment where I was like, Picard is the father figure of the whole ship. Like, he's in charge of it all. He's very sort of reticent. He's very stoic. So when he does show, he's very professional. So when he shows some generosity of spirit, especially when like he didn't have to do anything at all, but he went out of his way to do this for her, and he did it anonymously so she wouldn't even know. I was like, dang.
And this whole thing, the whole dressing down was to see how she handled a stressful situation, how she handled being dressed down by an officer, how she handled, all of it. And he was just like, okay, good. Like, you've handled it the way a Starfleet officer should handle it, which is like, again, 100%. It's just like Worf's test. It's a test about something she didn't even think it was a test about. And she passed by just being herself. Yeah, I really love these two scenes back to back. Probably the best parts of the whole episode, because you're just like,
very memorable.
Because there's just a lot of, and there's a lot of care that goes behind what each is doing for her, or, whatever. I don't know.
I agree with you. I think that like this episode was written by this name is so hard to say because it's an R and a W together. Ronald Wilkerson. Ronald and the rest of the writing team, because it's not ever just one person. The whole team did such a great job at being like, how would this character, Worf or Picard especially, treat this situation? Because we know them well. We have 7 years of backlog of memory of, how we know that these people behave in their real life. So, with Sito or Sam or Torek, we just met them this episode, so they could act any old way they want. Or like Ben. Ben is acting annoying as fuck, and I'm already like ready to airlock him, right? But like if Picard acted annoying, I'd be like, something's wrong here. This is out of character. Yeah. So much care, I feel, was taken into writing, how would this character really say this? Worf would teach a physical lesson. He absolutely would. And Picard would dress someone down and then come back and have her listen to her and give her a platform for when she's like, hold on a second, I'm going to defend myself. I just thought it was a really, really, really well done back scenes. Now, she shows up to the ops lounge the next morning, and there's a Cardassian sitting there. His name is Jared Dahl. He was in the escape pod, and it turns out he's a Federation operative. So he risked his life to bring them invaluable information about the Cardassian like military postings and like their positions and stuff. But they have an operation that they have to undertake. They have to get him back to Cardassian space. And if he just flew back in a shuttle, that wouldn't make any sense, or an escape pod, right? So they decide,
no one would trust him, and they would just blow him out of the sky.
No, they would absolutely, like, you can't trust a traitor or like a spy, so you kill them, right? So they were like, okay, we've got a plan. We're going to make it look like he captured the Curie shuttlecraft and this Bajoran terrorist, who's Sito, to return them to space, to like Cardassian space. And once he's safely back in Cardassian space, because apparently like the border patrol see lots and lots of like Bajoran hostages crossing the border all the time. So like nobody will really think twice about it, especially if you like bribe them a couple of bucks. Everybody will look the other way.
So if he gets stopped and he's just in a shuttle, they're just going to kill him. But if he gets stopped and he's like a bounty hunter with a prisoner, and then he bribes them, then they'll let him through like they do every single day. So they're like, this is what we need. And then we'll just like shoot you back in an escape pod, and Enterprise will pick you up on the way out.
Enterprise will be waiting to pick you up.
Since they're not far, they're like right on the edges of Cardassian space anyways. So they're like, we'll just like, we're going to take you, a little further, shoot you out. It'll be cool.
Which by the way, they said they're 5,000 kilometers from the border, which is pretty close to the border. But I just looked it up. 5,000 kilometers is roughly the distance between here and like the northern tip of Maine. And by here, I mean Southern California. Yeah, we're in Los Angeles. All the way to the northern tip of Maine is about 5,000 kilometers. So I was like, dang, y'all are far. But like, I guess in Star Trek terms, it's not that.
Yeah, not in Starship. I mean, they travel at warp. we travel in miles per hour. So like, I think in warp, like that's not even.
They travel in light years per second or some shit. Yeah. So it's like you're about 8 seconds away from the border. It's not
exactly. So this is the plan, but it's so dangerous that Picard's like, we cannot. He's like, I can't order you to do this. And Sito's like, then I volunteer. And it's crazy because when she first walks into the room and sees the Cardassian, just the look of like disgust and horror on her face, which is totally understandable because of how her people have been brutalized and treated by this people. But she's like, I volunteer for the mission. And part of me was like, why? Like, I get that you're apparently Ensign Ro is not help is here, you know, and like,
right, where the fuck is Ensign Ro? We haven't seen her ass for like 2
to be
seasons.
fair, she would not volunteer for this at all. She would kill that man where he stands. Like, she would not be down for this.
Really
but apparently there's no other
more violent Worf. Yeah.
She is. It's just like, how can you get more violent than Worf? Ensign Ro. That's how you can get more violent, because Worf is at least trying to defend something. Ro is just like hot-headed because she's, you know, because she's Ro. And so anyways, apparently there's no other Bajoran in all of the Enterprise that can do this mission. And she volunteers, but part of me was like, I wonder if she's doing this to like prove something because she's young. Young people always volunteer for stuff to like prove themselves. Like, I can do this. And I was like, well, I hope that's not why. Cause like,
girl, that's why I was going to say the US military. That's why every military banks on young, fit, idealistic, 18 to 22-year-old men in particular, but also women, to like take risks that are going to cost them their lives, and not
to take risks that 40-year-olds would never do.
Because I just turned 41. Yeah, I just turned 41, and I'd be like, hard pass. Like, you know, you're not going to force me to do this. Cool. I'm going to go back to 10 forward and go irritate Ben, you know, or whatever.
You know, it's so funny. I just saw this TikTok the other day where this guy was like, the one type of person I can never be friends with is the type of person who says go hard or go home, because I feel like that person dramatically underestimates my desire to go home.
Absolutely.
Like,
girl,
thank you. He was like, I love my home. It's comfortable. It's wonderful.
There is nothing more I want to do than be in my bed and watching a movie. Okay. Like, if go home is one of the options, I'm doing that.
Yes. That's what he said. He's like, I'm always going to pick go home. But I feel like when you're very young, or in this case, I mean, when you're just fresh out of college or just fresh out of high school, or just you're fresh, you're young, there's nothing wrong with that. I think this is just circle of life. Like that's what you should be like at that age. But part of me was like, oh, I hope she's not doing this to prove anything, because you're putting yourself in like a crazy amount of danger just to prove you are a team player or something. You could do that later. But she's
this
like,
right
I volunteer.
Is why you would never work in Starfleet. Yeah.
This is why I would never make it in the military. Even as a 20-year-old woman, nobody wants me in their army. Let's just put that out there. So, nobody wants that. Like, not if we want to win. So anyway, she's young and has something to prove. She volunteers. So they're like, Picard's like, okay, go to sick bay. Dr. Crusher has something to talk to you about, and meet us in the shuttle bay, and don't talk to anyone about this. So cool. Next scene, we're in the shuttle bay, and Ensign Sito walks in to like kind of, you know, Worf is there to say goodbye or whatever, see her off. And she's just been beaten black and blue with the like prosthetic and makeup and stuff that Beverly put on her.
Like
and
Beverly did it. Yeah.
Amazing. Like, her hair is kind of tattered. She's got on Bajoran clothes.
She looks so cool.
She looks so cool.
Good.
And she does look, and she goes like, look, Dr. Crusher made me look like I've been mistreated. And you see like the bruises and cuts and scrapes. Her lips are even dry and parched. I was like, that's a nice touch. It's amazing what Dr. Crusher was able to do in pulling together this look of Ensign Sito. And you just see Worf's kind of his breath catches seeing her looking like that, which is pretty dramatic to actually
she looks like she looks savaged. Yeah.
But you're right. She does look amazing. And so if
it wasn't for all the bruises and stuff, like her hair all undone and her lips all parched, she kind of looks like a girl trying to leave Coachella on the last day. And you're like, yeah, you've been through it.
Yeah, even with her lips parched, because Coachella's hot AF. So that's really still, like, that still tracks.
Bruising and crap. Yeah.
Right. Minus the bruising.
She looks really well done. Yeah.
Yeah. But I also think the bruising was just perfectly done. Like, oh my God. Wow. And
the makeup artists, holy moly.
Mm-hmm. So
even,
talented.
you know, like when a bruise is old, it kind of turns like yellowy greeny. Like she had all that. It was incredible. Yeah. And Worf is the only person in the shuttle bay there. And I was like, Picard couldn't even come to, or Riker couldn't even come to wish her well in this fucking top secret mission that she could risk her life in. He's the only one there, and he's waiting to say goodbye. And she thanks him for having so much faith in her. And I was like, oh my God.
And she's like, I won't let you down, sir. Again, there's that like, I'm going to prove myself, which they all have. They all have this I'm going to prove myself thing, but like, she's going to do it right now. So she gets on the shuttle, and this is where I remember the episode ending, like right here. But there was more. There was actually talking on the shuttle. I was like, I don't remember this. I mean, granted, I didn't remember like 98% of this episode, but I didn't even like intuit that we would get any conversation between them on the shuttle. Just like they're in the shuttle going off to do their little mission. But they do have this kind of heart to heart where he says he doesn't consider him, where this Cardassian spy does not consider himself to be a traitor. He's just like, I just want our people to be at peace. It's fine to protect Cardassia and our interests, but it's become just this game where all these idiots are out there starting skirmishes and fights because they want to make a name for themselves in the military. It's stupid, it's pointless, and it's causing loss of life. I don't want any more people to die. I just want my people to, focus on my people. And so he's like, if that means that I risk my life and share secrets, but I keep one more idiot from starting an unnecessary fight, then it is worth it. And you're like, okay. And they kind of have like an eye-to-eye moment.
Yeah, and she says, I never in my life thought I would hear a Cardassian talking about wanting peace. And I was like, yeah, girl, that's totally it.
Same. And then he says, I never thought I would meet a Bajoran willing to risk her life for a Cardassian. Same. Yeah. So this is really like an unprecedented moment in history that can't even be recorded because it's all super duper secret. So off they go. And next thing you know, we're in 10 forward and the ensigns are all kind of drinking and Sam is being Sam. He's freaking out and he's worried sick about her. He's like, where is she? She must be on the secret mission. What if is she okay? We're so close to Cardassian space. Maybe she's in danger. And Torek knows what's up because he figured it out in the shuttle bay. And also Alyssa knows what's up because she saw the Cardassian in sick bay.
Yeah.
But both of them are under orders to keep their mouths shut. And so Alyssa's just like, Sam, can we just talk about something else? And Sam was like, what are you talking about? Talk about something else. This is our friend who's in danger. Aren't you worried?
Yeah.
And they just like look at each other and he goes, wait a minute. Do you already know what's going on?
Yeah.
And then they're just like looking. He's like, am I the only one who doesn't know? Which is clear. He's the only one who doesn't know. And Alyssa's like, I'm not allowed to talk about it. And Vork doesn't even say anything. And Sam's just like,
Torek.
You know what? Oh, Torek. It's in Torek because he's also an ensign in Voyager. Torek doesn't say anything. And so Sam is just like, you know what? Like, I got some scans to run or something and just kind of leaves because he's super pissed that he's left out of the loop and they can't tell him anything. But also I'm kind of like, yeah, buddy, like this is the military. This is a thing. Like when Picard and Beverly and Worf went on their super secret Cardassian mission, they couldn't tell Riker. They couldn't tell anybody, and it's like, sometimes you have to just trust each other and be like, you can't tell me this, but okay. Like, I trust you.
Totally. I feel like this, and I love that it's kind of at the end of the episode. I love that this seems to be like kind of the like delineation point between what makes a junior officer and what makes a senior officer, right? Where Sam is still totally not ready to be like a senior officer, right? He's still very much into the gossip. He's very anxious about everything, which I'm like, anxiety is for everyone, right? But he pulls this line when he realizes that like Torek and Alyssa obviously know something. Where they're like, we can't talk about it. He's like, well, come on, we're friends. Like, baby, this is not middle school. Yeah. This is the military and you're under orders. If you cannot understand that, then you shouldn't even be here in the first place, right? And it kind of to me just shows Torek and Alyssa are like
maturing a little bit.
Yeah. And Sam's still like, come on, right? But then even when they're pretty clear with him, he's like, oh, okay, fine. Right.
And I feel like the next level is like, y'all need to stop hanging out with Ben because he's not conducive 100%. To you guys being mature.
Ben should be like an assistant in the kindergarten class in the fucking school because that's the level that he's at where he's just all about stirring that pot. And believe me, you and I have both worked for the same school. We both worked at two companies together. And the last place we worked was at the same school where there was a lot of really toxic leadership, right? And there was a lot of questions that we had. So there was a lot of like meetings after the meetings that not just you and I would have, but like everybody would have, right? Yeah. Because like administration would make some decisions. They wouldn't explain it at all, or they would explain it very, very poorly. And then you're like, what the hell? So of course, when you walk out, everybody's like, do you know what's going on? Do you know what's going on? What the hell's happening? Right. So like, I get that.
Right.
But Ben is really,
but this is different. This is totally different. This is like you're sitting having lunch and someone walks over and is just like, hey, did you hear what happened? And you're just like, what? Yeah. I'm just chill. I'm just eating my cup of noodles. Like, come on.
This isn't helping. Right. So at this point, they kind of go off and leave 10 forward. this is the hard part. This is the sad part. Like the Enterprise, it turns out, has now been waiting at the rendezvous point for 32 hours, and there's still no sign of her. So she's 32 hours late for this rendezvous. And the whole team is nervous for her return. Senior staff is nervous for her return as well. They're kind of pacing around and they're like, Riker's like, well, we could launch a probe, but that goes, but that goes into Cardassian space and that's a violation of the treaty. And Picard looks at Worf and he says, launch it anyway, right? So we see the probe go off and they're like, okay.
And almost immediately the probe starts sending back data.
Yeah.
And Data, who happens to be sitting there, is just like, oh, I'm detecting debris that look like the remains of a Federation escape pod. And everyone's just like, and you just see Sam, who's sitting right next to Data. You see his just chest fall. And you see everybody just kind of have this moment of, oh, crap, it's debris from an escape pod. So the escape pod was launched 32 hours ago, but never, ever made it across Cardassian space.
Yeah. And then we get the captain's voiceover saying the Enterprise has intercepted a communication from Cardassian space that a Bajoran captor fled, and the escape pod that she fled in was destroyed. And it's just really hard because that girl was trying so hard. She was great. She was good at her job. She was so freaking earnest, but without being like irritating about it. She had such promise and potential for her future. And she had just sort of put this whole Culvert Starburst and cover up like behind her and had a promising career ahead of her. And this is one of the few times, and I think this is maybe the first time since season 2, I want to say, where we've heard the bosun's whistle. When Picard informs them that a member of the crew was lost in the line of duty. And the junior officers, we see their reactions and they're all shocked and saddened. And Picard eulogizes her beautifully and says that her sense of duty and strength of character were an inspiration to them all. And I just kind of wanted to cry, considering this is a character we've seen once before, but we really met her this week. And even talking about her, I'm like, I kind of want to cry already.
Oh my gosh, I did cry. I always cry at this part.
This is such a senseless loss of life.
Yes, exactly. Hearing him talk, like I always boo-hoo cry at this point. I'm just like weeping and I'm like, and I wrote the same thing in my note. I was like, this part always makes me cry and it's so senseless. I mean, it makes sense in the context, right? It wasn't like she had a heart attack on an escape pod, right? It was like, it makes sense in the context, but it's Star Trek. You assume she's going to be fine. You assume the plan is going to work. You assume the escape pod's going to be
always a close call. It's always a close call, and they always make it in the nick of time. Like
they always have
goddamn ships. Yeah, how many ships have exploded, and then 8 seconds later, their pattern materializes on the transport pad, and it's like, woo, we almost lost you there. That's happened so many times. Like this was, and I think what was hard too is that they never. There was no like definitive where it's like we have her remains, we have her body.
It was just the ship was the escape pod was exploded destroyed. And we know that she escaped on it. So like we know she died, but we don't have that closure of the body exactly of like anything to hold, anything to touch. It's really sad. And in our last scene, which again I thought this was the end of the episode again, but no, we have one more scene in 10 Forward, and we just see Worf just kind of like sulking. And just being really sad, because this was his star pupil. And then we see the other ensigns that are also just grieving. And Sam walks over and he puts down a pip and he's like, they promoted me. But he's just so, who even cares about it now, right? It matters so much. He's grieving and this doesn't seem that important now. And the fact that he was in head-to-head battle with Ensign Sito. So he's like, maybe I only got promoted because she died. Like maybe she was the one who's going to be promoted. It is. And so that's kind of what he shares with the rest of the team of like, I don't even deserve this. I only got this. I probably only got this because she can't get it now. And it's just like really tainted. And his friends really go to bat for him. They're like, no, you're excellent. Like you deserve to be here. And Alyssa's just like, if she was here, she would be so happy for you, which we know is true by seeing how she behaved the rest of the episode. She would be genuinely, she might be a little sad for herself, but she would be genuinely happy for you. And then Torek is like, you will honor her memory the best by doing that job to your best, which is exactly what Worf did when he took over for Tasha Yar. It's like the best way to honor her is to do that job well. It's not to like skirt it or not want it or despise it or whatever. It's to do it well. And then Alyssa reaches over and pins the pip on him. And they just kind of like have this solemn moment. And Ben is hovering around them at this moment. And he walks over to Worf.
Fucking Ben.
But this is actually a good thing that Ben does.
Out of here.
This is a good thing he does.
would have done it so much better and she didn't have to stir the pot.
I want Ben transferred.
to whatever ship Riker just denied his captain's seat to.
It'd be better to airlock him, get it over quickly. So he walks over to Worf and he says, "Excuse me, sir, I have to move this table, but you can go sit. But there's an opening over at that table where you could sit," which of course 10 forward is like completely empty. So there's no reason for him to move it, and he can move anywhere. But it was just a gesture for him to be like, "I think you should go sit with them so that you guys can all kind of like say goodbye to her." Yeah. And Worf looks over and he's like, "I know what you're trying to do. It's very thoughtful, but it's not appropriate. You guys were all her friends. I was just her commanding officer. Like, I don't want to," basically he doesn't want to intrude on their grief. And Ben goes, "I happen to know that she thought very highly of you, that she thought of you as a friend." And so Worf is like, "All right, like, I'll go sit over there." And he does. He actually does, which is like so un-Worf-like. But he goes over there and he sits down and they all kind of look at him like, "Sir," but then they kind of like nod like, "Okay, we're all here to kind of say goodbye."
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think actually, I do think that Ben was useful in that moment to say,
I don't think anyone else could have done it. Maybe
no,
Troy.
I know for a fact that she considered you a friend as well. So it's like, it just makes me so sad to think about this. But here's the beautiful thing about being moved in movies and television is that you're sad, you're horrified, you're disgusted, you're anything, right? But temporarily, because you're just kind of getting some secondhand emotion. But like good movies and TV, good books, good comics, good poems, anything, it evokes an emotion in you. But like when the episode is over, I can turn it off and be like, damn, that was sad. And 10 minutes later, I'm like dancing with my dog in the kitchen, right? Because like, real life sort of takes back over. But this was a very, very sad ending to an episode that I'm like, okay, like it was a fine episode. It wasn't bad. I do feel like it was a bit of a filler episode. I probably won't watch it again, especially because it's so heartbreaking watching Ensign Sito just being this like incredible character that I just really would love to see more of. Like I really, really would love to see her get promoted and kind of find her way in.
She's like a much, much better what was her Sonia Gomez.
Thank you. I actually thought that Torek was a bit of a Sonia Gomez, where it's like, well, I've made improvements and I want to let you know about it, right? But like she was very clumsy and awkward. Torek is not clumsy and awkward. He's annoying, slightly awkward, but like he's just kind of annoying and like overeager, but also like doesn't know how to read the room well and has sort of a very monotone. So I can't even say he's like excited. But yeah, you're right. Like Sito really is like a Sonia Gomez that like I really want to see. I really, really wanted to see more of. And I'm glad we kind of got a where are they now, because at the very least, I don't want to say her death had purpose because it kind of didn't, but also like she knew the risks and still went into it. So like she knew this could happen. And I'm very sad that like she's not there anymore. What are your final thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, I thought this actually was a really solid episode. Like I said, I didn't remember most of it, but in rewatching it, I was like, this episode is solid. Like it's good. I like seeing things from the junior officers' perspectives. It's interesting. It's different. It's new. And it's like not as, just as a viewer, it's like, yeah, no, I'd rather follow around all the senior officers and get all the details, know all the secrets and know everything that's going on behind closed doors. But you're like, wow, this is the experience of literally everyone else on the ship. Like they don't know what's going on. This is every experience of every other junior crewman or crew person aboard any kind of military vessel, right? You know what I mean? Where it's like they see senior officers rushing around and you're like, what the fuck is going on? Right? Like, and you just are never going to get answers to that. And you probably shouldn't even ask. Right. Yeah.
So it's like,
or you'll get answers you don't want.
Yeah. But it's a very real, it like speaks to a very real experience that like millions and millions of like military servicemen and women, or even like think about like at the school that we worked at, if we saw senior faculty or like the senior staff rushing to have a little huddle, we immediately are like, I wonder what's going on, right? But like we don't get answers.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And we'd be like, what is that? What's going on? Are we in danger? Are we safe? Is there something wrong with the kid? What kid? Which kid? Do I have all my kids? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, all my kids are here. It's like exactly. Exactly. So I thought this was a really solid episode. I feel like it's one of the better ones of season 7. There's not really much I can complain about other than the fact that it's not all the characters we know and love, but even that was woven in perfectly. Like they picked Alyssa, who we love, to be a part of this, but they also
who's now engaged. Yeah,
now engaged.
She got engaged in the episode. Yeah.
and also we got to see Insincito, who we have seen before. So we do have a little bit of connection there. So it wasn't like the stupid episode when Picard went back to his past and it was a bunch of people we don't know and don't care about. They tied this in really, really well. So it definitely would make my rewatch list if it didn't make me cry, which it does.
Yeah,
that's why.
A really hard one.
Yeah, and that's pretty much been my criteria for all of our podcast is things that make it on my rewatch list are things that leave me with a positive feeling.
Yeah,
things that do not make my rewatch list are things that leave me with a negative feeling, even if they're really good. Like Chain of Command, excellent episodes, will not add to the rewatch list.
Hard to watch.
Like, yeah, all the episodes where it just makes me feel bad or sad or mad.
Well, this was a really good episode. I enjoyed it. It made me sad. It definitely made me feel things. And after last week, I'm just thrilled to not have to feel like irritation and rage. So, win. Guys, thank you so much for nerding out with us. Next week, we're breaking down season 7, episode 16, Thine Own Self. Have a fantastic week, and we'll catch you next week.
Bye. Thanks for geeking out with us. Be sure to join the crew at thetngpodcast.com to be the first to know when we do our live shows or host events exclusively for our members. We'll see you next time.